Hi, I'm Lisa Rubel from Love to Color My World, and today I'm going to talk about one pattern that you can use for 5-inch pre-cut squares. We've got this fun pack of 5-inch squares, all these different colors, just waiting for a pattern to turn them into a quilt. And one such pattern you can use is 4-Patch Fun. This pattern is available for free download when you purchase a set of 5-inch pre-cut squares from Sit and Sew Fabrics. And I'm going to walk you through how to make the quilt. So to make the 4-Patch Fun quilt, you're going to need some additional yardage of we used white in the pattern, but of some sort of tonal or solid, something that contrasts with your fabrics. If we look at the fabrics we have in this one, we've got all kinds of fun blues and greens and just a great assortment of colors. This pack of pre-cut squares comes with 42 squares, and we'll be using 40 in there. We'll be making 4-patch blocks. So the real key to this pattern is in your layout. So the first thing that you want to do after cutting your white squares that will alternate with your 4 patches is to lay out the squares into 4-patch units. So you can choose if you want to get them to be very contrasty or group all greens together and all blues together, whatever you want to do, but you want to get your whole quilt laid out so you've got your different 4 patches. If you want to just go scrappy, you can lay them out one at a time, but I'm going to set out 2 blocks worth here to get started with, and then we'll work on assembling those. Let's see, a lighter one here and that there. So once you have your blocks laid out, the next step is to sew them together, and we're going to sew them into horizontal rows. So for this particular 4-patch unit, I'm going to turn them both over like that, and then I'm going to put in a pin or 2 just to hold them in place. You can line up those pinked edges and pin them in place. And then when you go to the sewing machine, I like to stack them up and chain piece all at the same time. And when you go to the sewing machine, we're going to sew with a 1/4-inch seam allowance down both of those. So I've got my pieces sewn together in rows. Turn them around. And the trick when you go to press these is to press the seams in opposite directions. And that way when we go to join the 2 rows to make the 4-patch, the seams will nest with each other and you'll get a nice flat spot in the center, and you'll know that your seams line up really nicely. So I'm going to press those 2 in opposite directions, and then I'm going to lay them on top of one another, and you can see how I've got the seams nested so the seam allowances go opposite each other, and that will help me create a nice join in the center. I'm going to put a couple more pins in, and then I'm going to do the same thing and just stitch with a 1/4-inch seam allowance all the way down to complete my 4-patch. Okay, I've got my 4-patch sewn together. Now I'm going to press that, and for this seam you can press in either direction. It doesn't matter because we'll be joining them up with larger squares, so we're not having to worry about nesting seams. And you can see how nicely my 4 corners meet here because of those nested seams. So we're going to make 10 of these 4-patch blocks. You can, like I said, put together any fabric combinations that you want, and once the 10 of those are done, it'll be time to join the quilt blocks together. This quilt goes together really quick. It's a great baby quilt, a great teaching someone how to quilt project, or just a fun quick project that you can finish in an afternoon. So once you have all 10 of your blocks made, it's time to assemble our block rows. And each row will use 2 of your 4-patch blocks and 2 squares of your blender fabric. And the rows are actually all assembled the same, but some of them will be rotated 180 degrees so that your blocks alternate with each other. So you can get your blocks laid out into rows. I've got the first row here, and there will be a total of 5 rows. And then what I'm going to do is layer my solid color square on top of each of my blocks, head over to the sewing machine and sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then once those two are done, I'll join these pairs so that I've got my whole first row done. So I've got my row pieced together. Like I said, we'll be making 5 of these rows, and when you go to press them, you want to press the rows in opposite directions. And that is, again, so when you're joining the rows together, you'll be able to match up the seams and really get those seam allowances nested so you end up with nice joins where the blocks and the squares meet each other. There you go. And once your rows are done, then you assemble the rows together in the same way and your quilt top is done just like that. And then you'll add the backing and the batting, baste it, quilt it however you'd like, and then bind the quilt and it's done. Quick and easy, and a great way to take those 5-inch squares from sitting in the packet on the shelf in your sewing room and making them into a fun and usable finished product.